Hey guys, Andre here. So Mr. Alessandro, a subscriber of this channel, gave this great idea of mixing just with stock plugins from Cubase. So thank you, Alessandro. And so in this video we will be comparing the original mix, which I mixed with third-party plugins, and this mix with only stock plugins. I will do a quick rundown of the mix, I will tell you what I think about the stock plugins, and if I missed something of the third-party plugins. And by the way, you can download this project session, I will put the link in the description. So without further ado, let's jump to the talk. Okay, here's the session, and so let's hear it from the beginning, and I'll be jumping between the mix and the Q1, which is the original mix. So let's hear it. So they are quite similar, I guess, in terms of quality, I guess. That's what I'm talking about. Although this is really quite a subjective thing. Now, one thing has to be said, not as an excuse, but the original mix was done quite fast because this was a demo for a guitar company. And so at the time, I didn't spend a lot of time tweaking everything. But let's not use that as an excuse. So the main differences that I'm hearing here is more in the mids. So the original one has more low mids, more low end, and this one has more high mids. And if I have to choose one of these, I will probably choose the one that I made here. Now this is something that I struggled a lot when I was mixing this song with the stock plugins, the low end, which I think is much better in the original mix. And this has to do with a few plugins that I missed a lot, which was tape emulations, console emulations, preamp emulations. That's what I missed the most. And the compressors. I miss a lot the compressors because I guess the stock ones, they are good because they do the job, but I miss character out of the compressors. To sum it all, I guess that I will get more, it's hard to put a number on it, but maybe 5% better mix if I have used at least the saturation plugins from third-party plugins. But with that said, let me show you what I use here. So starting with my tubas, I always mix through a compressor, which is usually an SSL style compressor. And this was my first step to choose the compressor to my tubas. And I spent probably 15 minutes or more here just to choose the right compressor to get the sound that I wanted. I end up with the vintage compressor with the attack as fast as it can go, and I wish it could be faster, to be honest. But this one gave me the character and the compression characteristics that I wanted to. So let me show you the difference with and without. So it's gluing everything together. And before the compressor, I'm using an EQ, which is what I usually use, just with a different EQ. And this is doing a lot. Let me show you. So I'm boosting low end, high mids, and highs. If this was a rock and roll song or a rock song, the EQ moves will be totally different. But I find that to get the kind of the modern metal sound that I like and to make it more hi-fi, I guess, I usually do a little boost in the low end and the high end. And so that's the two bus. I'll show you later my stereo out, my master bus. And so let's start with the drums. And so here's the kick without any processing. And I use the frequency. So just the typical moves, getting rid of the muddiness. And in this kick I didn't boost anything because it has a lot of click already. Then I use a compressor and I compress it a lot, which is something that I notice, which is with the stock compressors, I feel like there's a lot of gain reduction to get the result that I'm used with the SSL channel strip compressor. And so here's how it sounds. And so this was to make it more punchy. As per usual, when you compress a lot, you lose low end. And so to get more low end, I use this Destroyer plugin, which I like a lot. I can tell you that. I can tell you that I'll be using this plugin a lot because you can tweak a lot the tone of the source. And so let me show you what it's doing. So much more low end and much more powerful. Then it goes to the parallel compressor. And the parallel compressor that I'm using is again the vintage compressor, which is compressing a lot. Like really a lot. Then we have the snare. Let's hear the snare. And so the first plugin in the chain is the expander, which is a really good expander. So let me show you. So it's getting rid of all the bleed, but it's still preserving the ghost notes. Then I use the frequency as an EQ. And so I'm attenuating the honkiness of the snare in the mid-range and boosting 8K and around 2.5K and the fundamental. The typical move that I will do with an SSL channel strip. Then there's a compressor. Which again is compressing a lot. Last but not least, I'm using the Tube, which is again a great plugin to do this kind of thing, which is shaving off the initial transient, the attack of the snare. And then it goes to the parallel compressor and the reverb. And the reverb I'm using is the Revelation. The toms, it's the usual stuff, getting rid of the muddiness and whatnot, compression and a limiter. The same goes to the overheads, the usual moves, EQ and compression. Let's hear without and I will turn it on. The room bus with, again, the same moves that I usually do. So let's hear it. So moving on to the bass, let's hear without and with the processing. So let's see what I did here. So the first thing was a compressor. And the compressor is to make the performance more even. Then there's the frequency again. Then there's distortion, and this distortion is not only to get more drive, but more low end too. And last but not the least, a limiter, just to get them to sit right in the mix. Moving on to the guitars, let me show you how it sounds without any processing. So the first thing I used was the frequency again. So I'm cutting the low end, I'm cutting the hiss of the guitar, and the usually offensive frequencies. And so here's without and with. Quite a drastic difference. There's another EQ next, and I use this one probably later in the mix because it was probably not cutting. So let's hear it. Then there's a multiband compressor for the palm mutes. So it's only working when there's palm mutes. And last but not least, I use the imager just to spread out more the guitars. And that's all for guitars. Now there's more guitars here that I'm using just the EQ, just to make them cut it for the mix. Then there's two synths that actually have quite interesting moves in the EQ. Let me show you what I'm doing here. As you can see, there's a lot of mid-side EQ here. And I do this because I want them to be more stereo and not so much in the middle. So let me show you the difference. Here's without. And that's pretty much it. It's a really simple mix to do. There's another compressor in the my drum bus. Let me show you. It's just gluing more the kit together. And finally on my master bus, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I missed a lot the saturation plugins. And so I tried to compensate with these ones. And they are definitely doing something that I like. So let me show you. Here's the tube first. So it's subtle, but if you listen closely and if you download the project, you can hear it better. But it's definitely compressing a little bit and adding more character to the mix. Then I used the quadro fuzz. Well, I tried the different saturation types and I ended up with the tape. And the only thing I did was turn it on, and I probably moved these frequencies, crossovers. And just by turning it on, it makes quite a difference. Let me show you. So again, it's compressing a little bit, but it's definitely adding a little bit more character to the mix. Then I use the imager, and I use the imager to make the low end a little bit more mono, because I feel it sounds more powerful as you make the low end more mono. And I'm spreading out a little bit all of the other frequencies. So let's hear the difference. And finally comes what makes this thing really, really loud, because we are hitting about 60 dBs, I think. To be honest, I thought that this would be the hardest part to make the mix loud without losing the transient, mainly the snare. And so I used the soft clipper and the razor. Well, I first started with the other limiters. I tried them all, but all the limiters alone cannot do the job. So I find that the clipper, which is the one that is doing the heavy lifting here, you can get really, really loud mixes. So let me show you the difference with and without. And then I'm using the razor as a limiter in aggressive mode, because I find that the one that makes everything more punchy, and I'm boosting just 2.2 dBs. And that's how I mix this song, just with stock plugins. And to be honest, I wasn't expecting to get such a great result. And again, the main difference between using stock plugins and the third-party plugins that I'm so used to was that I spend more time mixing, and this can be probably because I'm not used to use these plugins, but in some cases was because I was not getting the sound that I want. So that's one of the reasons why I spend more time. Besides that, I think, again, the compressors and the saturation plugins are missing, or at least I miss them. Now, one thing I'm 100% sure, if I didn't have the money to buy third-party plugins, I could definitely make it work just with the stock plugins. And so to end up this video, I will play the song from the beginning to the end, and I hope to see you in the next video. Cheers!